In Aboriginal communities, there's low rates of licensed drivers and people can face multiple barriers to accessing a licence. And one of those barriers is the fines enforcement system, whereby people with outstanding fines or state debt are prevented from accessing a licence. And what we see then is that people with limited means to pay fines or without alternative options for transport, particularly in areas not well serviced by public transport, will continue to drive without a licence. And this leads into cycles of secondary offending and can quickly see someone end up in prison. So it feeds into that cycle of over-incarceration of Aboriginal people. The final issue is that Aboriginal people are overrepresented in transport injury, which means that there's a higher rate of injury and death from crashes. And one of the risk factors for this is unlicensed driving. And this is where the development of the Driving Change program began. It started as an injury prevention and a road safety program, but it really broadened its focus and it became much more about social inclusion and social justice. Driving Change is a community-based licensing support program that's been implemented in 11 communities across New South Wales. So we partnered with communities in regional, urban and remote settings. The program employs an Aboriginal youth worker to provide one-to-one case management to clients through all aspects of the licensing system. So it's called an end-to-end licensing program. And this means that it helps with everything that a client might need to gain a license, right from getting a birth certificate to preparing for the learner test, paying for testing fees and licensing fees, which can be very expensive, paying for professional driving lessons, and most importantly, providing supervised driving practice. So one of the main components of the program was the youth worker coordinated a community mentor program where community members could volunteer their time to supervise novice learner drivers in New South Wales, it's 120 hours of supervised driving practice, which is quite high, and particularly for people who come from a household that may not have a licensed driver. One of the challenges of this work was ensuring that the evaluation was pragmatic and it really reflected and captured the day-to-day implementation challenges and also the challenges that clients were facing in order to gain a licence. So we worked really closely with the youth workers to collect robust program data that highlighted some of those client challenges. So across the 11 sites, we had over 1,000 clients, of which 88% were unemployed. Approximately a third had carer or dependent responsibilities, and half came from a household without a licensed driver. From that, we supported 400 clients to gain a licence, and what emerged from the evaluation was that the strength of the program was really that it was locally delivered, it had strong Aboriginal leadership, and it was built around strong community networks. The fact that it was delivered in a local community host organisation was really important too, because it meant that clients were comfortable to access the program and it could be adapted within each community to work within existing services and to build on community strengths that were already in place. We followed up clients 12 months post-involvement in the program, and what we found was that clients who gained a licence through the program were 2.5 times more likely to be employed or to have changed jobs. And these client stories were hugely impactful, from young people who might have been the first person in their family to gain a licence, to parents with young children who'd been struggling catching buses or taxis with prams and bags, getting their kids to school, getting their kids to sport. And then also there was an older group of participants as well who might have been in their 40s, 50s or 60s and were gaining their licence for the first time in their life. And for them it was something that they'd really thought was never going to be possible. And through these client stories, it became really obvious how important that one-to-one case management design of the Driving Change program was, because it really helped clients to build confidence and to feel empowered. And the common thread that kept emerging was that being part of this program has really changed my life. This research demonstrates that Aboriginal leadership and community ownership are essential to the success of community-based programs like Driving Change. It was really important to be able to tell those client stories, to be able to demonstrate how directly investing in communities to provide case management and mentoring really empowers young people to gain independence and make positive changes in their life. And that's exactly what the New South Wales Government is doing now through their Driver Licensing Access program. They're directly funding communities to deliver licensing support programs that are based on that holistic end-to-end case management approach. With continued investment such as what the New South Wales Government has now rolled out, there's real potential there to create generational change, not just in supporting people to get a licence in the first place, but also to gain employment and for all of those social inclusion benefits, which will then feed down to their children as well. They can support them to get a licence and so on. This program was initially conceived as a road safety injury prevention project, but it became about so much more than that. It's really about the social justice and social inclusion benefits that come from supporting people to get a licence so that then they can access employment, education, healthcare, and all those other benefits that come with having mobility, like being able to socialise. It also prevents unauthorised driving and excessive contact with the justice system that comes from the issue of outstanding fines and state debt. And this can see people who may not have alternative options to drive unlicensed and end up in prison, which can have a really destructive impact on the trajectory of a young person's life or a family's life if a parent is sent to prison. Mick Gooder once said this to me and I've never forgotten it. It's really important to work with stakeholders at all levels at which you wish to affect change, and that was the case with Driving Change. It was equally important to build relationships with youth workers in communities and members from community organisations as it was with members from government organisations. So we worked really closely with the youth workers, but we also worked really closely with people from Attorney General's Department, Legal Aid, Youth Safe, State Debt Recovery, Centre for Road Safety and Roads and Maritime Services. George Shearer there was a huge supporter of the program, and really the evaluation benefited from the input from all of these stakeholders, and it became that true multi-sectoral collaborative approach.